According to a 2015 study, 84% of the world's population identifies with a religious group. Most organized religions oppose the evolutionary explanation of world creation. This video, however, demonstrates that the universal presence of religion itself is explained by the logic of human evolution. This video is influenced by the bestseller book by Robin Dunbar, How Religion Evolved and Why It Endures. So let's get started figuring out, why do humans massively believe in God? One of the main problems faced by mammals is how to overcome the forces that can fragment social groups. Monkeys and apes solve this problem by creating networks of relationships through social grooming. Grooming provides the glue that maintains social unity through a sense of commitment and obligation that regular grooming partners have for each other. The act of grooming, the way the hands brush across the fur and surface of the skin, trigger a highly specialized set of neurons in the skin that respond only to slow stroking. These neurons connect directly to the brain, and their sole purpose is to trigger the release of endorphins. Endorphins are the brain's own painkillers, and their effects are a sense of calmness, warmth, happiness, and all is well with the world. The other major role of endorphins, however, lies in creating bonded relationships. The warmth we feel from the release of endorphins during grooming seems to create a sense of belonging and trust with the individual who is grooming us. According to Dunbar, hunter-gatherer humans typically live in a community of about 150, while typical ape social groups consist of 50 individuals. So our ancestors had to find ways to break through the grooming glass ceiling in order to be able to evolve larger bonded groups of 150 that we now live within. We have to keep investing a great deal of grooming time into each friendship to make it work as a relationship. This limits the number of individuals with whom we can form bonded relationships. The problem that our ancestors faced was how to groom 2 or more people simultaneously. The only realistic solution was to find ways of triggering the endorphin system that did not require direct physical touch. The new grooming techniques are laughter, singing, dancing, emotional storytelling, feasting, and last but not least, the rituals of religion. Of particular interest is the fact that emotional storytelling elevates pain tolerance and enhances bonding. Given how easily emotionally arousing stories activate the endorphin system, should we be surprised that the stories that form the bedrock of most religions invariably involve trials that were surmounted only with difficulty or end in martyrdom, or that sermons are often emotionally arousing? But just feeling good by telling emotional stories to each other couldn't develop phenomena as powerful as religion. The human capacity to mentalize played a crucial part. Also known variously as theory of mind, mentalizing is the ability to understand someone else's intentions. In the 1980s, philosopher Daniel Dennett suggested that evolution has designed the human mind to interpret the world in intentional terms. Take this sentence for example. I think that you suppose that I am wondering why you believe. Each mind state is characterized by an intentional word, an active verb that describes someone's thought process. In this case, there are 4 mind states, making this a 4th-order intentional statement. Formal theory of mind is defined as the capacity to realize that others have minds of their own, and hence might have a view about the world that is different from the one we believe to be true. Children acquire this capacity at around the age of 4 to 5, which has a dramatic impact on what children can do, including to construct fictional stories and lie convincingly. The upper limit on intentionality is around 5th order, meaning I can manage 4 other people's mind states in addition to my own. In other words, we can manage to keep track of a sentence as complicated as, I think that Bill supposes that Jennifer wants to know whether Peter intends to ask Susan whether she believes that the meeting was arranged for 2 o'clock. There is considerable individual variation in this capacity, with normal adults ranging between 3rd and 6th order. Now, how is this connected to religion? Mentalizing was fundamental for the appearance of religion for at least 3 reasons. First, without the capacity to imagine that there is another, transcendental, parallel universe inhabited by spirit beings, it is not possible to have a religion of any kind. Mentalizing is what makes this possible. Second, without the ability to understand that other organisms have mental states, it is impossible to imagine that there might be intentional beings that live in that alternative spirit world. Third, and most importantly, without the ability to communicate my ideas about this to someone else, it is not possible to have any kind of formal religion. I might well believe in the existence of God, but that on its own doesn't equate to a religion. it is simply a belief. A belief becomes a religion only when at least two of us agree about its tenets. To do so, we both have to agree that a proposition about a religious fact is true. Only with fifth-order intentionality is it possible to formulate a proposition about God's intentional status that we can both sign up to. This seems to be a real phase shift. Only anatomically modern humans had the mentalizing capacities to have been able to do that. This sets the earliest date at which any form of religion in its recognizable modern form could have arisen to around 200,000 years ago, when our species appeared for the first time. Humanity, however, had to go through multiple phases to evolve to sophisticated modern religions. It all started with the animist phase. Animism, where anima means breath, spirit, life, is defined as the belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct spiritual essence. In the first phase, religions were designed to bond very small, hunter-gatherer communities of 100 to 200 individuals. They did not have formal gods of any kind, though there was a spirit world that could be entered through trance. The shift into permanent settlements that occurred with the onset of the Neolithic around 10,000 years ago marked a change in the challenges that communities had to cope with. The early part of this period gave rise to more formal religions characterized by local gods, more formalized rituals, priests, and temples. These religions evolved to provide a form of collective control over communities that were beyond the size at which control could be exercised by personal relationships and peer pressure alone. It is difficult to be sure when the various components of doctrinal religions first emerge. What we do know is that by 2000 BC in Sumeria, as well as around the same time in Egypt's Old Kingdom, we have evidence for a priestly caste. In some cases, these might be priestesses, who often functioned as sacred prostitutes at temples. For example, Enheduanna, the earliest poet known to us by name, was the high priestess of the goddess Inanna and the moon god Nanasin in the Sumerian city-state of Ur in the decades before 2250 BC. Ritual sacrifice may even extend to human victims. Sometime during the 1st century AD, Celts in the northwest of England gave a young man in his 20s a last ritual meal of charred bread, then garroted him and cut his throat, finally depositing him naked in what at the time was a remote bog, now known as Lindo Moss. Since the discovery of Lindo Man in 1984, a total of 140 bodies have been recovered from bogs in Britain, all dating to around the same period. While the imposition of discipline by a police force is certainly effective in managing disruptive behavior among community members, it is always more effective to do this by making the individual feel committed to the community. In a sense, this is how religions work at their best, by creating a sense of belonging through shared beliefs and shared rituals. In his analysis of the social and political correlates of moralizing high gods, Dominic Johnson found that these kinds of gods are significantly more likely in societies that live in large communities, politically more complex societies, in which an elite rules over the community. In other words, organized religions seem to have been part of the machinery used to keep the lid on chaos so as to allow larger communities to exist. The evolution of religion is underpinned by the mystical stance, a capacity that depends in part on mentalizing skills that appear to be unique to modern humans, and in part on the role of the endorphin system in producing trance states in which we experience feelings of intense immersion in a consciousness beyond our own. This capacity to engage with a transcendental world seems to have been important for two reasons. First, it triggers the neurobiological basis of social bonding, thereby creating a sense of commitment in a way that no ideological belief seems able to do. Second, the religious dimension seems to scale up in a way that few of our other bonding behaviors seem capable of doing.